These fishing vessels typically range anywhere from 50 to 300 feet in length, and they're equipped with massive hydraulic systems for administering crab pots. These hydraulic systems that drop and lift the pots are also designed to withstand the freezing weather of Alaska. A boat and its crew are typically out to sea for 3 to 4 weeks at a time before coming back to shore. But it wasn't always that way. Up until about 10 years ago, king crab fishing was conducted like a derby. Over 250 boats registered at a time to partake in 3 to 4 days of king crab fishing. However, due to the reduced stocks available, the lower wholesale price of king crab and the danger associated with king crab fishing, the catch period has been extended in order to prevent derby-style fishing. Today, there are just around 100 boats fishing for king crab. A new crab fisher is referred to as a greenhorn. A bait master sets bait of herring and cod in each pot to attract king crab. A pot launcher is responsible for setting the pots when instructed by. So where do these crews find king crab? Generally, it's found in Alaska and Russian waters, though each crab type has their specific region and habitat. Stocks of blue king crab are typically found off the Pribilof Islands and St. Matthew Island. They are typically caught somewhere between 600 feet deep in the intertidal zone, or the part of the ocean that is underwater during the high tide and exposed during low tide. The golden king crab exists around the Aleutian Adak Islands and is located deeper in the water, between 600 to 1,600 feet deep. The fishers mark the depth of each pot with a buoy for identification. Red king crab typically roam on flatter terrain of sand and silt ocean bottoms ranging from 120 to 600 feet, similar to the blue king crab. Of all the king crab, red king crab is the most sought after for commercial use. Red king crabs are also less aggressive than blue or golden king crab. In general, king crabs are sensitive to water temperature and prefer freezing waters, thus it is not unusual for a red king crab to migrate a mile per day. Red and blue king crab tend to go from shallow water to deep water each year. Though the season will depend on the fishing guidelines or quota established for the year, king crab fishing takes place during the winter months of October through January. When fishing for the Alaska king crab, most fishermen, women use what is called a pot, a steel, square-framed trap made covered with a wire mesh. These pots can weigh anywhere from 600 to 800 pounds each. Depending on the size of the fishing boat, crews will have between 150 and 300 pots per boat. Larger fishing boats of 100 feet or more average around 250 pots. Fishing pot, a box-shaped trap made from a steel frame and covered with a wire mesh, used to capture king crabs. They weigh 600 to 800 pounds each. Pots are considered to be less damaging than mobile gear because they remain in one location and don't impact a large area of the seafloor. Also, the sand and soft sediments where crabs reside are less likely to be affected by the large king crab pots than other habitat types. The typical bait used for luring king crab is herring or codfish, which, ironically, are two predators of king crab. Crews place the bait inside the pot and then lower it to the bottom of the seafloor using powerful hydraulic systems. When fishing for Alaska king crab, certain legal requirements must be met, the majority of which revolve around crab size and the fishing season. For example, only the male Alaska king crab can be kept, and quota limits are strictly enforced. Any violator of these laws receive hefty fines in the hundreds of thousands. The reason for these regulations is to sustain the crab and fish population. The state of Alaska has also instituted minimum size and sex restrictions, vessels registration, seasons, observer requirements, and gear restrictions. Each year, crab boats are at sea given an individual quota based on prior year's catches and the estimated biomass. To address the needs of Alaskan crab fisheries, the North Pacific Fishery Management Council has developed a crab rationalization program. The program is intended to address the conservation issues associated with the overfishing caused by derby fishing, reduce bycatch and associated discard mortality, and increase the safety of crab fishermen, women by ending the race for fish. In 2006, the Bureau of Labor Statistics ranked commercial fishing as the occupation with the highest fatality rate of 142 per 100,000 individuals. Alaskan king crab fishing is over double that amount with over 300 fatalities per 100,000 individuals. Major causes of death include hypothermia or drowning. Crew members are also severely injured or killed by the heavy equipment used to catch king crab or the dangers from the ice buildup on the boats. In recent years, however, the profession has become safer, due to the move to ban on derby-style fishing, where crews would rush to fill quotas in a few days, competing with other boats. About 30 years ago, king crab fishing was one of the highest-paying workplaces in the United States. In the early 80s, during the king crab fishing boom, boat owners were making $1 to $2 million a season, and deckhands were taking home $60 to $70,000 each. Today, the structure remains similar, but the dollar amounts have changed. You can read more about commercial values at the ADFG website. Deckhands get a percentage of the gross after the boat owner's take is subtracted, which ends up averaging around 8% to 10%. Greenhorns receive a daily fixed amount based on their time on the boat. Newcomer deckhands, i.e., new boat, usually earn 5% of the adjusted gross catch. Becoming a king crab fisher begins with a physical exam. This is critical as physical safety will be at risk with cold temperatures, high seas and bulky equipment. Fishers will also go through a mandatory crab boat course that trains them how to work on a crab boat. Crew members are responsible for their own commercial fishing licenses, typically $60 for an Alaska resident, and all the gear they will need to perform their job. Longline fishing, or longlining, is a commercial fishing angling technique that uses a long main line with baited hooks attached at intervals via short branch lines called snoods or gangions. A snood is attached to the main line using a clip or swivel, with the hook at the other end. Long lines are classified mainly by where they are placed in the water column. This can be at the surface or at the bottom. Lines can also be set by means of an anchor, or left to drift. Hundreds or even thousands of baited hooks can hang from a single line. This can lead to many deaths of different marine species. See bycatch. Longliners, fishing vessels rigged for longlining, commonly target swordfish, tuna, halibut, sablefish and many other species. In some unstable fisheries, such as the Patagonian toothfish, fishermen may be limited to as few as 25 hooks per line. In contrast, commercial longliners in certain robust fisheries of the Bering Sea and North Pacific generally run over 2,500 hand-baited hooks on a single series of connected lines many miles in length. Long lines can be set to hang near the surface, pelagic longline, to catch fish such as tuna and swordfish, or along the seafloor, demersal longline, for groundfish such as halibut or cod. Longliners fishing for sablefish, also referred to as black cod, occasionally set gear on the seafloor at depths exceeding 1,100 meters, 3,600 feet, using relatively simple equipment. Longlines with traps attached rather than hooks can be used for crab fishing in deep waters. In Hawaii, where Japanese immigrants introduced longlining in 1917, longline fishing was known as flagline fishing because of the use of flags to mark floats from which hooks were suspended. 8. The term flagline fishing persisted until local fishing vessels began to use modern monofilament mainline, line setters, and large, hydraulically powered reels, when the term longline fishing was adopted. Humans have relied on the bounty of the sea for sustenance and livelihoods for centuries. However, the age-old practice of fishing has rapidly evolved as the global population continues to grow and the demand for seafood escalates. One of the most traditional fishing techniques that has gained attention is longline fishing. This method is widely recognized as one of the most natural, responsible techniques, benefiting both fish quality and ocean sustainability. Join us on this journey beneath the ocean's surface to learn about longline fishing and uncover why it's considered the future of sustainable fishing practices. Longline fishing, also known as hook and line, is a commercial fishing technique used to catch a variety of fish and seafood species. It involves the use of a long, horizontal main fishing line, which can be several miles in length, to which numerous baited hooks are attached at regular intervals. As the Marine Stewardship Council explains, longlines can be set for pelagic, midwater, or demersal, bottom, fishing, depending on the target species. While this is just a brief overview of what longline fishing is, it's also helpful to understand how exactly this technique works. Longline fishing is used to target a wide range of species, including cod, haddock, tuna, swordfish, halibut, and various types of bottom-dwelling fish. It can be employed in both offshore and deep-sea environments. Setting the longline. A longline fishing vessel deploys the main fishing line into the water. By most estimates, the average longline in the United States is 28 miles long. The line may be set near the ocean floor or suspended at a specific depth to target certain species of fish. Baited hooks. Baited hooks are attached at regular intervals along the line. According to NOAA Fisheries, longline bait can include squid, mackerel, and sardines, though this can depend on what appeals to the target species. Soak. The longline is left in the water for some time, allowing the baited hooks to attract and catch fish. The duration of the soaking period can vary based on fishing regulations, the behavior of the target species, and number of hooks deployed. Retrieval. The longline is retrieved by the commercial fishing vessel. Fishermen carefully pull in the line, removing the caught fish from the individual hooks as they go. Processing. The fresh catch can be processed on board the vessel or in an onshore facility once the boat has landed. At North Coast Seafoods, our fishermen utilize cutting-edge technology and techniques like flash freezing on board the boat in order to preserve seafood at its peak quality and condition. As you can see, longline fishing offers a more precise, meticulous approach when compared to other commercial fishing methods such as trawling or dredging. This is largely why it is considered to be one of the best and most sustainable fishing techniques that can still be conducted on a large scale. Longline fishing, when practiced responsibly and sustainably, can offer several benefits. Let's take a closer look at some of them. Compared to other fishing techniques, longline fishing causes minimal disruptions to the environment. Trawling, in particular, has been shown to destroy the natural seafloor habitat by dragging a large net across the seabed. This method can be very harmful to the environment as it impacts many natural habitats and animals who live on the seafloor. Longline fishing, on the other hand, does not interfere with the ocean floor. The lines simply soak in the water without causing a major impact on underwater environments. The Marine Stewardship Council, MSC, also offers a certification for longline operations that are committed to improving their monitoring programs and mitigating interactions with non-target species. As an example, our naked wild cod is longline caught and certified sustainable by the MSC. Bycatch, or the unintentional catch of non-target species, is always a concern in the fishing industry. Longline fishing has significantly lower levels of bycatch, especially compared to trawling, which uses a large net to indiscriminately catch fish. NOAA Fisheries shares that current bycatch reduction measures include the use of circle hooks. These hooks are, as the name suggests, circular and have a smaller opening that reduces the likelihood of turtles and marine mammals ingesting hooks or being caught. The experts emphasize that circle hooks used in combination with finfish bait like mackerel significantly reducing sea turtle bycatch. Longline fishing operations can also follow these recommendations to reduce the severity of potential bycatch. Longline fishing allows for more precise targeting of species, which is also a component that helps mitigate bycatch. Commercial fishermen can be deliberate with their hooks, bait, and location of the longline to target species. Not only does this make for more efficient fishing, but it can also help in the conservation of overfished species by focusing on more abundant and sustainable ones. When fish are caught in massive nets or dragged across the seafloor, they are also more likely to be beaten up. Sometimes it's damage to the external part of the fish, but it can also be bruises to their flesh that isn't evident until the fish has been filleted. Longline fishing resolves this problem by ensuring each fish is handled with care. Rather than hauling in thousands of fish at once, fishermen must unhook one fish at a time from the longline, keeping the fish unbruised and yielding the highest quality seafood. This helps to maintain peak quality of the fish from boat to plate. At North Coast Seafoods, our fish are locally sourced from communities around the globe, using the sustainable, long-line fishing method. The small boats we partner with deliver fish within hours of catch, and then we hand-select only the best that end up reaching your plate. Lobsters possess two large claws, one blunt and designed for crushing and the other sharper and smaller, normally used for slicing. Their exoskeleton is blue, navy on the dorsal side but slightly lighter underneath with an orange tinge. Lobsters inhabit the lower shore up to a depth of 60 meters and are found on hard rocky substrates or compressed mud. They are nocturnal and territorial, usually living in holes, burrows or crevices. They are found on all UK coasts and inhabit North Atlantic waters from Norway to the Azores and the Mediterranean. Diet is comprised mainly of benthic invertebrates including crabs, mollusks, sea urchins and starfish, but they are also known to eat fish and algae, and other smaller lobsters. They can be highly aggressive and fight other lobsters. Adult lobsters will typically roam to find food and have been known to search 10 kilometers from their burrows. They hunt mainly at night. Lobsters can grow up to a meter in length but will typically reach 50 centimeters. Sexual maturity is reached at around 6 years of age, at a size of around 75 to 80 millimeters carapace length for females and slightly less for males. Mating occurs throughout the year through copulation shortly after a female has molted. Females carry eggs attached to pleopods, legs mainly used for swimming but sometimes used for brooding eggs or catching food, on the abdomen and are known as buried for this time, which usually lasts 10 to 11 months. Fecundity depends on a number of variables, especially size of female, but can range from 5,000 to 5,000 eggs. Spawning usually occurs in summer and larvae are released into the water column, where they remain for around 5 to 10 weeks, undergoing metamorphosis. Survival rate of the pelagic larval stages is low due to high predation while they are in this vulnerable life history stage. Juveniles bury into the sediment where they remain for around 2 years, rarely moving. Lobsters are long-lived, with individuals known to reach 40 to 50 years of age. Lobsters are a nocturnal species that hide during the daytime in crevices or rocks. They are not able to grow linearly like most animals as they have a hard outer shell, exoskeleton, which does not grow with them. They must shed this hard exoskeleton and grow a new one, so they grow in increments. As they lose their exoskeleton, they become soft-shelled. At this point they are very vulnerable to predation, and it can take several weeks for a new outer shell to grow and harden. Lobsters are very difficult to age individually, as they lose any age-determining structures with every molt. Next to the boat and the motor, the lobster trap has been the indispensable tool for fishermen for more than 200 years. Invented in 1809 by Ebenezer Thorndike of Swampscott, Massachusetts, the lobster trap revolutionized lobster fishing. Little has changed in the design of the trap and the hard work it takes for the independent lobstermen and women to bring lobster from Maine to your table. Except for those caught by deep-sea trawlers, lobsters are still caught in lobster traps, also called pots. As traps used to be made of wood, metal traps emerged 20 years ago that are lighter and can withstand salt water erosion. Plus, the rectangular metal traps stack better than the rounded wood slat traps. The wire mesh cages have round openings with bait inside to entice lobsters to crawl in. Wood traps were built and maintained by lobster fishermen in the winter months when the seas were too rough for fishing. Pulling wooden traps from the water was no easy task. They weighed more than 80 pounds when wet, until motorized pot haulers were developed to ease the burden of fishermen. A fisherman's daily trap location is the most important factor in his catch success. Lobstermen lay their traps on rocky crevices and patches of seaweed where lobsters like to hide. Lobsters troll the ocean floor in depths of water less than 100 feet, but can be found in as much as 1,000 feet below water. Lobsters hide in sand or rocks during the day. They are nocturnal and hunt for food by using their antennas to smell and find prey. Lobsters eat everything living or dead, including mollusks, worms, fish, sea urchins, crabs, and even other lobsters. Salted herring is the preferred bait fish used by lobstermen to lure and trap lobsters. When there is a herring shortage, bait prices increase, impacting the lobstermen's bottom line. Bluefish, cod, mackerel, and menhaden, known as pogies, are also used as bait. According to the Department of Marine Resources, lobster traps also catch fish species like sculpin longhorn, sea raven, cunner, cod, redfish, cusk, flatfish, mackerel, and horseshoe crab. Each lobster season, Maine coastal waters are dotted with bright-colored buoys that mark a lobsterman's lines of traps. The some 3 million traps off the coast of Maine are distinguished by color patterns and design distinct to each owner. Each lobsterman is limited to 800 traps in the water at one time. Beneath the surface, each trap is secured by a concrete block connected by the buoy by rope or the warp. Traps are set on the seafloor and sit for a length of time ranging from one tide, 6 hours, to several days. Most lobstermen check their traps in one day. Lobstermen retrieve their traps by using a hook pole, called a gaff, to raise the trap by hand or pulley to the edge of the boat. Lobsters short of regulation size or females with eggs are returned to sea. A lobster is measured by its carapace, the dorsal section not including the head, claws or tail, which must measure at least 3 1/4 inch but no more than 5 inches. A traditional lobster trap has two components. The outer compartment has 1 to 2 funnels of nylon netting leading inside the trap. Lobsters attracted by the bait move into one of the funnels. The inner component, called the parlor, is baited with salted herring or haddock. By the time they take the bait and reach the parlor, the lobsters are trapped. Kitchen. The kitchen is the entry to the trap. It is funnel-shaped and made of netting. Flat cement blocks or bricks are placed in the kitchen area to weigh down the trap so it hits the ocean floor flat. Traps are set between 20 to 30 feet of water. The success and sustainability of the Maine lobster fishery is due in large part to the design of the trap. It is estimated that for every 20 lobsters that enter the trap, only one is caught. However, the inefficient design also requires longer days, resources, and fuel from the lobstermen who harvest them. Lobster lovers don't need a trap to enjoy live lobster from Maine. Since 1999, LobsterAnywhere.com ships live, quality hard-shell lobsters delivered to your doorstep within 24 hours, in the continental US. View our lobster specials at Let's start with the essentials. Your cray pot is your ticket to a bountiful catch. The key components include the steel base, jarrah frame, and pine slats. Pine slats are fantastic for catching crays. The steel base is sturdy, but it needs protection. That's where the sacrificial anode comes into play. It dissolves away, preserving your steel base from rusting. The more you pull your pots in and out of the water, the faster your anode will disappear. If you put them in for 2 weeks and take them out for 2 weeks, that initial period when your pot first goes back under the water, the anode will do all its work in protecting and preserving your steel base from rusting away. That's when it works the hardest. That's because your steel base will have rust and things on it just from being out in the air and oxidation happens. Remember, regular checks on your pots are crucial, especially after exposure to air and oxidation. Adding weight to your cray pot is essential. A light pot can easily move, get stuck under sand, and won't catch crays effectively. We need to weigh it down properly to avoid these issues. For steel-based pots, use a large ballast of around 9 to 10 kilos on top of the pot's weight. Wooden-based pots need 2 ballast pieces. To secure the ballast, use strong cable ties. Place the ballast on the side where you'll carry the pot. This ensures stability, especially when lifting it, holding on the gunnel of the boat or sitting on the tipper. Tighten the cable ties securely to prevent any movement or noise underwater. A pot that is noisy will simply not catch crays as well. Trim off the excess ties. Once the anode and ballast are in place, your pot is almost ready to go. Just add the necessary length of ropes and floats, and you're all set for a successful crayfishing trip. When it comes to your rope length, here's the deal. Use an additional 5 meters more than your water depth as a guide. If you're in 10 meters of water, you'll want a rope that's about 15 meters long. Why? Well, you need some extra length to handle waves and position your boat correctly without things going wrong. But here's a key point to remember. Between April and October, there are laws in place to protect whales. If your rope is longer than 20 meters, you must weigh down the top half to prevent whale entanglement. Even if your rope is shorter than 20 meters, it's a good idea to avoid having too much slack on the surface. If you have more than 5 meters of extra rope, coil it up a few meters. If you're not sure how to do this, use a cable tie to secure it near the floats. This helps keep your gear safe and prevents entanglement issues. Remember these simple tips when you're setting up your rope and be considerate of other anglers and marine life. Before you head out to the waters, do a final check. Ensure the anode is secure, the ballast is tightly fastened, and the rope length complies with regulations. A little effort in preparation goes a long way in ensuring a successful crayfish expedition. When setting up your floats, use float savers to prevent knots from slipping. Personalize your floats with your initials, birth year, and gear ID number. Use a soldering iron to burn this information, ensuring it stays permanently. Remember, in Western Australia, only use a maximum of 2 floats per rope. Avoid using 3 or 4 floats. Instead, vary their sizes and colors for identification. Your gear ID number is crucial for compliance. In Western Australia, you can share crayfish pots. If you and a friend, spouse, or crew member are fishing on different days, both of your gear IDs can be on the pots. This means either of you can pull the pot, even if the other person isn't there. It doesn't increase your catch limit, it just allows flexibility in who can retrieve the pot. Each person's bag limit remains the same, but this rule lets you share fishing gear legally.
Look at that one!
Really?
Do you like it? Do you like it? That's 1, that's 2.
Holy hell!
Might be the last one.
There are two species of halibut that I know of, Atlantic halibut and Pacific halibut. I have only fished for the Pacific halibut, which is found from northern California up through Alaska. They are most prevalent in Alaska. Pacific halibut can attain massive sizes of up to 500 pounds. They are relatively long-lived, potentially living over 50 years, although that is rare. They are highly sought after as a food fish. As juveniles, halibut start out swimming like most fish with their eyes on each side of their head. As they grow, they turn on their sides and one eye migrates over and they start to look like other flatfish. Just one of the many wonders found in nature. Halibut are nearly always caught while bottom fishing, but they do sometimes come up in the water column to hunt a variety of other fish such as herring. They also eat octopus and squid, crustaceans, and basically anything they come across that fits in their mouths. Pacific halibut do not put up that strong of a fight, but they do pull, and because they are often hooked at great depths they can be a lot of work to bring in. Pacific halibut don't fight much, but they make up for it at the dinner table. The smaller 20 to 40 pounds fish are especially tasty. They have a high fillet yield of around 65%. Heavy tackle is recommended, both because of their large size and the fact that you need to fish with heavy weights to get down to where they live. They are not line shy, so you can use a heavy leader. Make sure to use a sharp hook to penetrate their tough mouths. Pacific halibut are generally caught bottom fishing with bait or lures. They respond well to scent, so chum can be effective. Pacific halibut will hit a variety of soft plastic lures fished on heavy leadhead jigs of a pound or more depending how deep you are fishing and how much current there is. Just bounce these off the bottom. Occasionally you can reel up 20 or so cranks, jig it up and down a bit, and then drop it back down again. Pacific halibut love big baits on the bottom. Salmon heads, salmon bellies, herring, octopus, and a whole host of baits work well. Many anglers anchor, put in a chum bag and some baits, and wait for the halibut to come to them. Using the right bait and lures at the end of your line is essential when it comes to catching ground fish like halibut at great depths. Here's the Eagle Nook Resort team's roundup of the top halibut fishing baits and lures we recommend trying on one of our charted halibut fishing trips on the west coast of Vancouver Island. What bait works the best for Pacific halibut? If you're brand new to halibut fishing, start with our guide to fishing for halibut in BC, and then book one of our unforgettable Vancouver Island fishing packages. When it comes to catching halibut, live bait is best. Fortunately, halibut are not picky eaters, which leads to a wide variety of live bait to choose from. Here are some of the best halibut baits to use. To halibut, salmon smells and tastes delicious. When the incredibly tough salmon skin is left on, salmon scraps are very durable, so they tend to stay on your line for quite a while. Any part of the salmon will do, especially the white-skinned belly meat, which is soft and easily shredded, making it easy for halibut to take a bite. Puncture the skin side of the salmon first using a circle hook. Then, puncture it once more through the flesh and back through the skin, leaving you with a double-threaded belly strip. The salmon will be on there so securely, you'll need a knife to remove it. Using salmon heads for halibut bait is a great way to use up every part of a salmon. Their strong scent can attract halibut from great distances. Small heads of coho, chinook, or pink salmon are best. If the heads are too big, halibut might not be able to fit the whole thing in their mouths, which would make the bait less effective. Rig a salmon head to your sharpened circle hook by piercing the snout at the upper and lower lip so you're essentially threading the mouth closed. Squid is another great halibut bait, particularly when targeting larger fish. You can use either fresh or frozen squid, either whole or in pieces. Squid is a lot softer than salmon, so it does tend to get nabbed by critters other than your target species on the way down to the ocean floor. To prevent this, use two hooks in tandem, and add either thread or dental floss for reinforcement. Octopus is a great halibut bait because it has a tough, rubbery texture that helps it stay firmly on your hook. It's not as readily available as salmon, but it does the trick quite well. When using octopus as bait, it is important to hook the tentacles near the body to ensure the bait does not come loose. Double hook the octopus as you would a salmon belly and that's it. Be careful your octopus isn't too big though, as this could lead to lots of nibbles but no bites. Herring is irresistible to halibut, making it a good halibut bait. Large size herring are best, but the cost of large herring can start to add up. Keep in mind that herring is a soft fish, making it easy for non-target species to rip off your line on their way down to greet the halibut. When using herring as live bait, they are typically hooked through the mouth or nose and allowed to swim freely. You can also consider brining it in pure salt for a few days to harden it up or stuffing it in a bait bag. One trick we have seen is the use of homemade bait bags in which softer live bait, such as herring or chopped fish scraps, is balled up inside of nylon or pieces of mesh produce bags from the grocery store. The bait bags are tied off with a thread and should be about the size of a golf ball. Bait bags are an effective way to target halibut, and they can be used in both deep and shallow waters. They can be used alone, or they can be stuffed into a hoochie, where they will be concealed but still leave a strong scent trail. They can even be frozen for later use. Halibut aren't too picky about what type of live bait you use. In addition to the baits mentioned above, Pacific mackerel, Pacific grey cod, anchovies, sardines, clam necks, shrimp, prawns, you name it, can all be used. These bottom feeders have also been known to bite at baits that haven't originated from the ocean, such as raw beef, pork, and chicken. Some anglers even use freezer burnt fish and meat. Doing so is a great way to put otherwise inedible human food to good use.
Straight back. All right. Yep.